Hey everyone! I rewatched Sam Raimi's trilogy, and it completely changed my view of Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility. This iconic word stuck with Peter Parker ever since he was 15, etched into his memory the night Uncle Ben died. But let's be real.
Let's get real.
This phrase kinda ruined his life. Seriously, I think Peter completely misunderstood what Uncle Ben was trying to say. And that misunderstanding made his life way harder than it needed to be. Now don't get me wrong. From a storytelling perspective, whether you're into comics, movies or cartoons, Peter's messed up life makes him relatable. He's just like us, juggling everyday issues. Except, with web slinging and existential dread.
Oh boy, yeah.
But I would argue a lot of his problems trace straight back to that famous pep talk from Uncle Ben. Think about it. Uncle Ben was probably telling Peter to use his brains for good, to step up and help Aunt May, to become a responsible adult, and maybe invent something cool to make the world better. But at no point did Uncle Ben say, "Hey Pete, suit up, hit the streets at night and single-handedly take responsibility for saving New York City. Oh, and while you're doing this, battle some supervillains."
That's bullcrap. That is bullcrap.
Peter took on all of that at 16 because he felt guilty. Guilty about Ben's death. Guilty he couldn't stop the guy who did it. Guilty about things he shouldn't have to carry at his age. Imagine being 15 or 16, barely scraping by, already working part-time and helping your aunt keep the lights on, while dealing with high school drama. Now toss in nightly battles with criminals who can throw buses around like dodgeballs.
I'm something of a scientist myself.
Stop the cap.
That is next level stress. Sure, Peter handles it surprisingly well. Better emotional intelligence than most adults, honestly. But Uncle Ben probably didn't envision him risking life and limb every day as a sophomore in high school. Still, I have to admit, Spider-Man is probably the best thing that ever happened to Peter. It's his chance to escape from being the nerdy, overlooked kid at school. It's when he can finally cut loose, cracking jokes and roasting bad guys like he's headlining a comedy roast.
That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you?
I thought my jokes were bad.
This is his real personality, the side he's too anxious to show as Peter Parker. But let's face it, Spider-Man's life isn't all sunshine and quips. Often the Spider-Man persona clashes big time with Peter Parker's personal life, and Peter's usually the loser in this matchup. The best Spidey stories almost always have Spider-Man thriving, while Peter Parker's life spirals into chaos. And there is a reason for that. Spider-Man is objectively bad news for Peter Parker's personal relationships. Forget MJ, Gwen, Black Cat, even Kitty Pryde. Spider-Man has screwed up way more relationships than he's ever fixed. Think about it. Peter constantly has to ditch his friends, miss important dates, and bail on commitments because the city is always in peril or whatever. Can you imagine your boss constantly asking you to take selfies for him so he can publicly roast you and your alter ego on the daily news?
You serious?
Only for you to suck it up because you need the money for your agent and bills. That's been Peter's hustle since high school. Yep, selling humiliating photos of himself to a dude who made a living tearing him down every day emotionally. That's rough. Sure, J. Jonah Jameson isn't exactly the devil. He's shown genuine care for Peter at critical moments, even risking his own life. But let's be real, this is a toxic working relationship, folks. Jonah simultaneously cares for Peter and torments him relentlessly. It's an emotional trap Peter can't escape. If he hadn't become Spider-Man, Gwen Stacy would probably still be alive. Losing Gwen wasn't just heartbreaking, it was traumatizing. Especially knowing he feels directly responsible. Of course we don't blame Peter, but the tragedy is, he can't help but blame himself. Spider-Man blames himself for everything, like seriously every single disaster, or crisis, or bad hair day he experiences. Peter Parker somehow convinces himself it's his fault. And honestly, it's kinda depressing. He carries around enough guilt to make Batman seem emotionally balanced. Marvel is packed with heroes who took up the mantle when they were already grown-ups. Think Tony Stark, Doctor Strange, Captain America. Adults making adult decisions. But Spidey, he's always been different because he's basically a kid. Peter was out there swinging from buildings, punching psychos in rhino suits, and dodging pumpkin bombs before he even had a driver's license. Yeah, that sounds totally healthy. Spider-Man also had this habit of going solo. He would rather handle everything alone, than let anyone else risk getting hurt. He routinely turned down team-ups with the Avengers or X-Men, and let's face it, early Spidey was kinda jerk about it. He was the snarky teenager of the Marvel universe, keeping everyone at arm's length. Think of him as the angsty emo kid at the superhero lunch table. And while modern adaptations have softened his edges a bit, that loner instinct still shapes how Peter deals with the world around him. By hiding his identity, he cuts himself off from resources, friendships, and opportunities that other heroes take for granted. There is a perfect episode of the animated series The Spectacular Spider-Man that captures this dilemma brilliantly. Peter needs photos of the lizard for the Daily Bugle paycheck to help Aunt May with bills, but in the process he ends up ditching his friends when they desperately need his help. He literally walks away from the lab crew, trying to cure Kurt Connors, because he can't tell them the truth about why he's leaving, and it's tough to stay mad at either side here. Peter's friends are justified in feeling abandoned, but we, the audience, understand Peter's impossible position. Sure, Spidey saves the day, but at what cost? He loses a dream internship opportunity, all because he's forced to choose between financial necessity and personal ambition. Classic Spider-Man Catch-22. Everything goes back to that one line from Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. It's an iconic motto, but it's also Peter's personal curse. He feels like being Spider-Man is the only way he can truly live up to his uncle's words. But it quickly becomes a vicious cycle. The more Peter sacrifices his personal life, the more he feels obligated to keep sacrificing. Being Spider-Man is basically Peter Parker's toxic coping mechanism, one that simultaneously empowers and destroys him. Look at the famous Black Suit storyline. Venom's symbiote is often seen as a metaphor for addiction, but I would argue being Spider-Man itself is Peter's real addiction. It's the one thing that lets him unleash his true personality. The funny, confident, and sarcastic guy hiding behind the awkward, nerdy teenager persona. He literally can't give up without feeling lost and helpless. And that is perfectly captured in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. Peter is emotionally drained, especially since he had to push away MJ for her own protection. Here Spider-Man is directly wrecking Peter's happiness. Ironically, when Peter temporarily loses his powers, his civilian life actually improves. Grades, relationships, mental health, everything starts looking up. It's a harsh irony. The more effective he is as Spider-Man, the worse life gets for Peter Parker, and vice versa. Spider-Man isn't just about webs and wall crawling, it's about constant sacrifice and impossible choices. Ultimately, Peter's biggest enemy isn't Doc Ock, Venom, or Green Goblin. It's himself, his sense of responsibility, and his inability to let go. And while that makes him relatable and fascinating to watch, it's also why being Spider-Man just might be the worst thing to ever happen to Peter Parker. When Peter Parker stops being Spider-Man, things actually start looking up for him. He finally gets to have a social life, actually go on dates with MJ without disappearing halfway through dinner, and even manages to nail those pesky exams. Basically, he gets a taste of a normal, happy existence. Weird, right? But deep down, Peter always knows he's meant to be the hero. Case in point, even when he's powerless, this dude runs headfirst into a burning building to save a kid. Sure, it's borderline suicidal without super strength or spider sense, but that's just Peter. He can't not be Spider-Man. Even without the powers, the hero is part of who he is. It's the life he chose, for better or, let's face it, mostly worse. Now I'm not throwing Uncle Ben under the bus here. Telling a teenager that with great power comes great responsibility, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, or financial, is genuinely solid advice. Peter internalized this message, but he took it to the extreme, because, you know, guilt. Comic writers love pilling tragedy on Peter to keep him relatable, and honestly, sometimes it feels like too much. Don't get me wrong, great Spider-Man stories usually show him losing more than winning. It's part of his charm, or misery, depending on how you look at it. But if it's all doom and gloom without some legit victories along the way, we're just watching a poor kid get tortured for our entertainment, and that's pretty messed up. It's tough watching someone who constantly strives to inspire hope and make the world better keep getting punched in the face by fate. And yes, Spider-Man comics love doing this. Take the ending of Ultimate Spider-Man, where Peter literally dies. Talk about brutal. I mean, come on, Marvel, chill out. Lately, almost every Spider-Man adaptation, whether movies, games, or comics, seem determined to make his life a relentless nightmare. It's like someone said, how much can we torture Peter Parker without it becoming illegal? Now there's obviously some relatable truth here. We all deal with setbacks. Spider-Man's story resonates precisely because life often feels like an uphill battle. But the balance matters. Occasionally, Spider-Man himself should be a bright spot in Peter's life, not just an endless burden he has to bear. Sure, making Spider-Man an anchor dragging down Peter Parker might be great for dramatic tension and box office receipts, but it can feel unnecessarily cruel. Spider-Man should enhance Peter's life, not systematically destroy every chance he has at happiness or a future that doesn't involve dodging exploding pumpkins. It's fine, even great to watch heroes stumble and fall, but creators have to balance out those defeats with enough victories to keep us invested. Otherwise, it just feels like emotional torture porn, leaving Peter stuck in a loop he can never escape. If being Spider-Man ruins Peter Parker's life so thoroughly that he can't exist without the mask, then something has gone terribly wrong. And not just for Peter, but for all of us watching. And what do you think, guys? And as for me, I don't say goodbye.